I'll call to order this meeting, the Harrisville City Planning Commission meeting, Wednesday, March 28th, or 2023, sorry. We'll excuse William Smith and Brad Elmer tonight. Looks like we've got a good crowd here. Thank you all very much for coming. Start with our second agenda item, which would be an approval of our planning commission meetings from February 8th, 2023. Get a chance to read those. Good.
I'll make a motion that we approve the planning commission meeting minutes of February 8th, 2023 as written.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our agenda item number 3, public hearing, planning commission public hearing on March 8th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Mixed use residential zone for Weber County Parcel 11-033-0087, located at approximately 125 west, 1100 north. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing.
I'll offer a motion to open public hearings, take public comment for or against the proposed Harrisville Ordinance, mixed use residential zone for Weber County Parcel 11-003-0087, located at approximately 125 west, 1100 north.
I'll second that motion.
All right, Jenny.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Good evening. Tonight, we'd like to just review a staff memo that was in your packet, included in the packet for this evening's meeting. Regarding the public hearing this evening, an application was received from the developer for a rezone of Weber County Parcel 11-033-0087. The current zoning of the property is RE15, which is 15,000 square foot lots, which is approximately 1/3 acre, to mixed-use residential. The project management committee did meet with the developer during our January project management meeting. We discussed the specific uses of the project as well as the process that we have in place for our mixed-use developments, which is a negotiation process between the city staff, a council member, the planning commission member, and the developer until a development agreement can be negotiated, which then becomes the ordinance and the zone for that mixed-use development. The surrounding properties of this parcel immediately are agricultural, A1, and RE15 to the east side across the 1100 North Street. They are zoned R110, which are 10,000 square foot single family residence. On February 10th, we received a rezone application, and the public notices were provided by the city recorder to those properties within 300 feet, posted here at City Hall, that the Harrisville Cabinet on 2150 North, and as well as the Utah Public Notice website, that we would be holding this public hearing this evening. And an authorization letter from the property owner was also received, giving permission to the developer to move through the rezone and subsequent development applications processes upon approval of the development agreement. So an analysis of the application, this parcel is included in the 2019 general plan map for mixed-use infill development. It is consistent with chapter 11.06 of the municipal code to our rezone by including the concept plan that is outlined here. And I should mention, this concept plan that was included on your staff memo is a new rendering from the one that went out in the public notice, because the developer has been making modifications as they're getting information and nailing down specifics about the project. They have also updated that concept plan tonight. So that's the map we've had up this evening, and we'll pull it back up for the public hearing. They have included additional information on there as it's become available, and they've gotten some immediate feedback they've already been addressing. The rezone application with the concept plan is consistent with the required subzone map that we require in our mixed-use development. So staff's recommendation at this point is to receive the public comment at the public hearing and then begin the negotiation process using that feedback to have the mayor appoint the committee members for that negotiation process to take place to come to an agreement on a development agreement to move forward with the project and ultimately rezone. The map back up and we'll take comments.
We close. Okay, we'll open the public comments. It is a 3-minute maximum. Please, when you go to then state your name and address. And then you can.
I don't think we need their address necessarily.
Just their name.
Just their name, okay. Just state your name when you get up. We'll take those public comments.
I'm Jean Glines Christensen. I live on Wallen Way. I have a question about where the entrances to the subdivision would be. What streets would they come in on to get to this subdivision?
It's actually, it's not a question, a question and answer. It's just.
But I can't really tell
that
from
way.
the map who can answer that for me.
1100 north is the road going north and south from top to bottom on there. That's 1100 north right there. And then Wallen Way is stubbed in on the bottom there.
So if, isn't that private property? Isn't this section right here private property? How can there be an entrance onto their property?
Again, this is just a conceptual map, and again, this isn't a question and answer. This is just public comment for your concern.
So we'll hear what you have to say.
Well, my biggest concern is we live in a very quiet, private neighborhood, a lot of children running around, and all of a sudden we're going to have all this development. And are there it looks like there are townhomes there or some sort of other multi-use homes. And I just have a big concern that, we'll lose all our privacy. We'll have a lot of noise, a lot of construction vehicles, and certainly a huge amount of vehicles coming on are very quiet now, which is a very quiet street, Wallen Way.
Thank you.
Named Ron Hogan, my wife and I, we just barely moved in like a month ago. We picked this place because it's like, it's a nice community. We like it. It's quiet. And we've been in a month and now it's like, guess what we're gonna do? And I know it's not a answer a question kind of thing, but my point with the access, I can see all the traffic coming down 1100, all of it to get in there. And that's, for me, and I'm sure the people that live there, not acceptable. But I would have to just agree with the last comment, so.
Thank you.
Hello, Carrie Thomas. Listen, I'm totally and completely opposed to this plan. First of all, the mixed use is not really spelled out well. And like the fellow person said before, we've got a community here where we're invested in our property. It seems like there's not a bit of space left in here, so where somebody isn't building something. Used to be some open land over there, and then Walton built that house over there. He said, I said, what are you gonna do with this property? Oh, I'm never gonna sell this. I'm gonna open up for we're gonna have community vegetable patches, blah, blah, blah. Well, that seemed fine, but of course, you know what talk. Well, here we are now, and this is going to make our community very, like the other lady said, noisy. We're coming down 1100, and that's going to be a super busy street. You're having people come in from, especially when there might be some businesses put in here down the line. And that really concerns me. This is a residential community, and that's how I like to see it stay. That's why I bought my home here. And I do not want tons of outside people driving down, going into, and the other thing that concerns me is the apartment part of it. These people are not invested in the community. They're for 6 months and then 2 years, maybe at the most. They couldn't care less what happens to the community. We do. Our property values are going to change. It's just really a bad idea. I really think the people here should not have even taken this without some real heavy thought to it, because we don't need another development in Harrisville. Like I said, there's not a speck open. And right now, I've been robbed twice and I've been here for like 9 years. I've had people come in there walking in, can visit a neighbor or something, walking around, looking over your property, and they're coming in from somewhere else. And I'm really opposed to this, because I think it opens us up to all kinds of vulnerable problems. And I do not want any businesses like kitty corner to me, where people are coming and going, and the noise, the dirt and the dust. I put up with that when Walton built his stuff. He made more dust in front of my house, that he cut right through the back of the city's property to get in there and dump trucks of dirt. I mean, I just think this is a terrible idea, and we need a little bit more concern about the people that are in Harrisville, have interest in the community, and would like it to stay a residential community without a lot of things going on. Because believe me, I was on a Murray City Council for several years when I lived down there. And once these developers get their toe in, they want another thing, they want something else, they just don't quit. So I'm really opposed to this, and I just think it needs to be considered very heavily. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ali Damar. We live across the street from 1100, and we moved in 2019. Before 1100 was completed, it was a through street. And a few things we noticed after that street was completed was a heavy increase in traffic, but also an increase in crime. Our cars were vandalized. Now people are driving through that street and they're looking for houses to break into. And we're just concerned. I'd like to echo what that lady before me said, which very well expressed, I think, our concerns about crime increasing and the nature of the people who move into this type of real estate. We don't know, by the way, if there's Section 8 or not included in this. So it'd be important, I think, that we are informed fully as to the development plans, where the entrances are, where the exits are, how traffic is supposed to circulate. But I think from our perspective, we're also opposed to developing something like this in an area where it's mostly single-family homes. We're concerned about crime, we're concerned about traffic, noise, and the kids. The lady mentioned before, me as well, we have little kids in our house, and all that traffic moving in and out, it's just, doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
Okay, I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to read this.
Please tell us your name.
We are Doug and Linda Russell, 1080 North Highway 89, right down the street here. Our little 3.5 acre hay farm abuts the west side of this development. First off, I think this mixed use development is timely and right for Harrisville. 40 homes on 6 acres is probably the best use for this property, and I believe we use much less water than 40 homes on 1/3 acre lots like the subdivision next door, or 6 homes on 1 acre lots, like I've heard members of this planning commission say that they would prefer. I do, however, have 3 major concerns regarding this development. First is the Dixon Creek that runs through the property and downstream to my property. The creek is great for livestock watering, but all the development along the creek has caused flooding on my property and flooded my land and basement as recently as this year. I'm concerned that all the runoff from this development will flow into Dixon Creek and increase the chances of flooding even more. Second is the costly irrigation ditch off the Western Irrigation Canal that has served irrigation water to 26 Harrisville landowners for over 60 years that I've lived there. It runs right through the middle of this development. Plus, I have a 12-inch pipe that was installed by my dad when he owned this property, running down the west side of the property, and delivers irrigation water to my 3 acres of grassland. I knew my nephew had an offer from a developer for this property. So I asked the board of directors of Western Irrigation at our annual shareholders meeting last month, how I can make sure my water rights and irrigation ditches are protected from developers. They said that the other cities around Harrisville that are served by Western Irrigation get Western Irrigation involved in the planning, and they make sure their shareholders' water rights are protected, and the developers are required to make sure the farmer's water is delivered to them like it always has been. Justin Shinsel and Jenny Knight were at that meeting, and Miss Knight stated that it was a civil matter, which indicated to me that Harrisville City is not interested in protecting their longtime citizens' irrigation water rights, and will make us poor dirt farmers take the deep pocket developers to court to protect our water shares and ditches. Please don't do that. Get Western Irrigation involved. Thirdly, this development landlocks my little 3.5 acre farm from access to 1100 North, which was promised to my dad when he sold the property to Russ Wallen, thereby severely limiting the development potential of my land. I would have to access the road stubbed into the property somehow, or I would have to request a zoning change that would allow me to combine my property with the storage facility to the west and add additional self-storage, which would greatly benefit all the new mixed-use development in Harrisville that this subdivision will likely shepherd in. Bang, 3 minutes. I mean, wow. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Matthew Trott. My wife and Kurt and I purchased the Walman's property, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the map here. We're new to Harrisville. We bought the home in December with the intent of making it our forever home, and we chose Harrisville specifically because it offers kind of the best of both worlds: open space, kind of a semi-rural atmosphere, and then access to amenities and downtown. When we bought the property, we were shown a number of development plans that showed no continuation of Wallen Way through onto the subject parcel, and were promised that that would be the case if future development occurred, that there would not be access. And a week ago in the mail, we got a map similar to this showing a extension of Wallen Way through our property, which requires approximately 1/8 of our property to be sold to the developer to achieve this, which we are not inclined to do. It would significantly impact our property as well as the rest of the neighborhood. It would, we'd lose much of our front yard. As you can see, the back of sidewalk and right away gets pushed significantly closer to our front door. Our driveway is now at an awkward angle to the street. And we bought a house in the cul-de-sac, and we're gonna sacrifice that cul-de-sac living through traffic, for the safety of our children playing in the streets, and that's not something we wanna do. So we strongly oppose the alignment as it currently is. It's not something that we would consider to sell the property to achieve. We're open to other alignments. We specifically talked with the developer about turning the street as soon as it enters the property, which would lessen the impact to ours, create more of a cul-de-sac feel at the knuckle, and curb a certain amount of through traffic. We also oppose the townhouse aspect in some respect. We understand the need for townhouses. They're an important part of affordable housing in any community. My wife and I started our life together in a townhouse, so we wouldn't have the opportunities we've had we not done. But in this specific instance, front loading all the townhouses off 1100 with the intent of buffering the new single family residences, I feel that's a little bit backwards. We should be buffering the existing residential properties around the subject parcel. And I feel that there's a much better location for all of the townhouses, specifically along the industrial and agricultural parcels along the southwest and south portion of the property that would buffer not only the rest of the residential properties around it, but also the new single family residential properties. That's all we have.
Hello, my name is Kent Butters. Me and my brother, we own property directly to the south of that. And, we've gone through this land development stuff for years and years and years. And I've been in the same situation a lot of you people are. My backyard, I had 200, 300 acres of open fields. And then 2 years ago, I got windmills right behind my house. But I had no alternative to that unless I had enough money to buy that ground and then do what I want, you know, with it. So from our standpoint though, we don't mind what's going on here. I think maybe there's some alignment stuff and things like that, but we're looking at it like our property is right here. We think that the road should continue down through here and then there's a stub road that comes into here, tie in down there. So we can get all the way out to like 89 down through SPS, down through there and Butters Construction at some point. I mean, I've seen some conceptual plans of that going down through there. We think that would probably help with the traffic, you know. You're not all going out on just those two little roads. It could come out in two more places at least, give you 4 ways in and out. Or 3 if something was done by the Wallens there. But that, my comment would just be, we'd like to be able to have access to our ground. We have concerns with irrigation water too. We get into a little bit of problems with the subdivision to our east there, where we were supposed to get water, we were supposed to get pressurized water, and we never did. But we're still working on that, but that would be my only comment. Development's coming. It's gonna happen. You just gotta plan ahead.
Sure. Thank you.
I am Ron Hogan's wife. We just moved in, like you said. We came from Roy. And I am fine with single family housing. Really. You own the land, you should be able to build something. It's yours. But what I am not for is we came here to get away from that garbage. The townhouses is a hard no for me. Build houses, let people grow there. There's parks. I saw that you guys are gonna build a new one. That's beautiful. That's why we came here, to be a community. We had people come and say, welcome to the neighborhood. That didn't happen in Roy. That's here. That's why we came here. Don't take that away from us. Like, this is why we came here. Please don't put townhomes, no matter what. That's my 2 cents.
My name's Malin Smith. I'm probably one of the 3 newest in the neighborhood on Wayland Way. My wife and I bought to have a family here. And I think the most difficult part about it is the townhomes and the apartment homes. We want to have a family in Harrisville. We want to send our kids to Harrisville schools. We want to be able to grow a family. And as soon as you start having apartments at the end of your street, now you have ruckus, right? You have more traffic, you have more mismatched families, renters that don't care about where you live. When we moved here, obviously living in a predominantly LDS community, we had more people at our door welcome us to this neighborhood than I could ever imagine. And I want to keep that. We love it here, and this is where we want to stay, but we don't want to stay here with townhomes and apartments at the end of our street.
My name is Kathleen Hohash. I live at 1149 North 100 East. I believe this property is behind my house. When I moved here, behind me was total field. I mean, we kind of made a joke. There was a chase that came through, with police were chasing a motorcycle that ended up in the canal, right in my backyard. Fortunately, the people who were in the house behind me now didn't have them go through there. And we made a joke. It's a good thing there wasn't a road back there, because he'd have got away. 2 days later, the road 1100 North, I believe, was continued on through. So we, that didn't make sense to us. I am not for any high density development for this at all. There's enough of that going in Ogden right now. We've already struggling with water everywhere. I don't know that this will solve any water problems. For those who are concerned, if you want to look up HB 150, that's going to limit any water rights that you may have right now. So if you think you have water rights, guess again, the state's just taking care of that for you. I am totally against any high density housing. If you want to put more single family, which is what this neighborhood is predominantly is all single family housing, You have all the townhomes, other places, you're gonna be building by the golf course, put them all where the golf course property is at. Instead of all the houses you wanna put in there. Leave this, the neighborhood as it is and as it should be. I watched that police officer patrol 1100 North, like I said, my back of my house faces that road. And constantly there are cars speeding down that road. I would hate to live on it because they got a raceway from 89 clear to Washington. And a lot of them, that's what they do. He's constantly stopping people on that road. To bring high density housing in there is not a good idea. I'm totally against it.
Hello, my name's Kyler Lewis. Sorry, I don't have much of a voice right now. We live just to the property just adjacent to on the west side right there. We bought our house, obviously. We didn't want to be in a multi-family, home essentially. That was not our original goal. I understand development, it's gonna happen at some point, and I would really like to see single family homes there. I think that's appropriate for the neighborhood. It's what we have around there. I thought it'd be odd to have anything different and probably not best for the community. Thank you.
How you guys doing? My name's April Silvera. My husband Jerry and I built in Thoroughbred Meadows in 2016. We both combined together, served over 41 years in the Air Force, and we were looking for some place to retire. Well, we found the lot, built the house, moved in. Everyone was super nice, all the neighbors, great. Then they built in the housing that's now in front of us between us. We live on Copper Circle and Larson. And more than once, how many times, babe, we were told, we're not gonna keep building, we're not gonna keep building, we're not gonna keep building. I, like so many people here today, agree that people need the opportunity to buy a house, to call it their home, to plant roots, to make it their forever home. Apartments and duplexes and condos, I'm not saying they're not needed, because they obviously are. But in this area here, I don't think that that's appropriate for them. I know when we first moved here, there was, we came to a meeting for where the golf course is to convert that into housing. I haven't seen anything happen since. I don't know what's going on. Unfortunately, I'm not the best with doing research and finding out what our community is doing, but we like it here in Harrisville and we want to stay. I would request to be highly considered to rework what is proposed to allow for those families who want to put in roots, single family housing, children, they need space to grow, parks, playgrounds, there's great schools. We like it here. We like living in Harrisville. Everyone's been really great to us. But I just think that the proposal needs polishing, it needs reworking, it needs attention to detail. And I hope that's taken into consideration. One last question. When will we have an opportunity to be able to ask questions and get feedback? When will that be?
They won't answer that.
Let me think how I can reword that. When will that opportunity be? Will there be an opportunity?
Answer some questions.
I mean, will there be another meeting where we can ask questions and get answers?
We can address your comments after the conclusion of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name's Amanda. This is the first time I've been to one of these. So
Thank you for coming.
thank you. Thank you for having me. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. I love real estate and I think it's amazing. And like the first thing I walked in here and I looked at this, I'm like, man, I wonder how much money they're gonna make. but anyway. My comments and concerns are similar to a lot of the people here. The huge one is the pass-through traffic. Like, I think the development's gonna happen one way or another, if you like it or not. So if there's any way that you can address the concerns of blocking off the street, I don't know if that's a violation. Also, there's a guy that was talking about his front yard. If that was my front yard, I wouldn't like that either. So I really hope that you do take a lot of these things into consideration, especially also like the townhouses. I think a lot of us would be okay if it were just single family. So a little less money, but a little happier. Thank you.
Alright, so I think this is too tall, so you can hear me. Alright, my name's Anna Lopez, and I'm here with my husband, and we live at, just on Wallet at 1036 North, and we love living there. We've moved from Ogden, it didn't come too far, but we feel like this is a neighborhood that we have enjoyed living in. Our kids can walk safely around there, and so we would support it just being a single family. I think when I look at Ogden and I drive on Wall, I see some of those apartments, there's no place for those kids to play. It's gonna cause trouble, and I worry that that will happen here, is that they're gonna just go around the neighborhood and and just be bored. So I worry about us turning it into that, and I do believe that people need housing, but I also wanna respect what we have already in our neighborhood, and I think single family housing helps fill a gap. So that's all I would say, and then we've enjoyed seeing it grow, because we moved in 2016 and saw everything develop, and it's been nice to see that happen and turn into a neighborhood, again, that you can raise your family in.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hey, my name is Craig Butters, and I've had some experience with the townhome stuff. And you have the ability to have them build a high quality townhome. You don't have to let them go in there and just build a box, you know, that falls apart. I don't know if you've all been familiar with the ones down on Second and Wall. Those are built very, very good. And they attract really high end people. They're not bringing all the low budget renters that are coming in here and causing problems, because their rents are $2,500, $2,700 a month. So you have the ability to control some of the build, the fascia, the brick, the fencing, you know, which a lot of these people are really concerned about super high density homes. You know, and you get a lot of riprap and low budget renters, you know, and, you know, I see them problems. So, I mean, I would say you have the ability to make this project work if you just control the build a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have one more quick thing I wanted to add, 5 seconds. Everybody coming up?
I do mind stepping up to the microphone. Thank you.
I will. I'm sorry, I just wanted to add this, I forgot about it. When I moved up here in 2012, I think it's kind of important for the land itself there. I contacted the federal government on what areas might be in flood zone up here, my house might be on the flood zone. Well, he sent me a bunch of maps, we corresponded back and forth on the computer and all this, all kinds of things. Strangely enough, my house was not in a flood zone, but the house right behind me is, according to him. Then he sent me a whole bunch of things about the property along and around the area. And according to him and all of the stuff, and I probably got it still somewhere after all this time, he told me that whole area across this place, even all of those towns, Ivy homes, most of it was in a flood zone. And that includes the property you're looking at right now in a federal flood zone. I think you ought to look at that. Because there's like pockets that may not be, but most of it is. Like I'm in a pocket that isn't, people behind me are, people down over here. And I think that's really important Because when, the city guy came over from Harrisville City, he was nice enough to take a peek at my crawl space. And I wanted to make sure it was dry. And he said, fine, he says, you know, you can't be building basements anymore here in Harrisville, anyway. And I said, really? And it looks like all my neighbors here have got basements. And he said, yes, but it's a big flood problem. And Harrisville City said no more. That's what he told me. And he worked for Harrisville City at the time, an older gentleman, worked there many years. Well, guess what? I was walking along one day when Ivy Homes was building over there, and I had my tape with me. I'm an architectural designer, and I thought, gee, these look pretty deep for crawl spaces. And I dropped my tape down there. Sure enough, way over 10 feet, most of them. Somehow, this developer got to Harrisville City, and when they'd already made a decision not to build any more basements because of this water table problem, all of Ivy Homes put in basements. So I just think they have a great deal too much influence on cities and areas because of their money and thinking they're gonna bring a lot of tax dollars in. And I don't think that's the only thing that should be considered, but I did want to bring that up. You might want to look into that because I don't think you want to be worrying about helping people get out of flood problems over there. Thank you.
Have anyone else wants to come on up? Do we motion to close? They'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Make the motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then would it be, could we bring Justin up to maybe address the floodplain and perhaps afterwards the developer to answer just a couple of questions?
So as it currently sits, there is floodplain on this development. As going through right now, the certified floodplain managers courses, we will definitely work on mitigating that. The homes, any home that would fall into that floodplain, we won't allow to be built in that floodplain, but it's actually a very narrow strip right on Dixon Creek. As that Dixon Creek, as they potentially pipe that in with the right size piping, the FEMA will come out and do a CLOMA and actually take that off the floodplain map. So then they will not have anything built within the floodplain. Also, about the irrigation, what was stated was a little incorrect, and we do very much manage and work with the developer that if there is irrigation to people downstream, that it needs to be piped and engineered properly. And we do make sure that that is completely installed 100% and inspected right and done just like we have on very many other projects. Ashland Cove, we know very well. We have some issues, we've had some issues on the golf course that we've sat down with the ditch users and the developer and mitigating all those problems. So it will be 100%, nobody will lose any water that goes into their actual irrigation system. The question about adding water to Dixon Creek, right now, that the way that the detention system is set up, it's actually not even gonna probably be able to flow into Dixon Creek due to elevations. Our piping is actually, if you, in this area, Dixon Creek is pretty shallow. And the piping of all that will actually be a lot deeper. And so we'll bypass Dixon Creek as an outlet to another outlet through our city or into UDOT and then go through the pond system that way. As far as a lot of these roads, as we all know, 1100 has always and will always have that dedicated right away. It was when it was built, it was dedicated that way. So as far as traffic coming in off of 1100, it's coming no matter what. To either somehow, some way attach back into the charter school with development, some way, somehow, it will always be that dedicated right away. The attachment to Wallen Way has a lot of history with it, and others know that better than I do, and will probably explain that a lot better. There's certain things that, as far as I would say, is I don't live in this area, I can't tell, but if you wanted to minimize traffic, this would be the best plan. Because if you take a stub road that could eventually go through the butters and all the way out to 89, then that would create a way different traffic route, all the way straight through to 89. There's a Larson Way. So again, there's a lot of still handling of trying to do this the proper way. But this is so far one of the best, lowest density concepts we've seen, that with the surrounding being single family, and then kind of the townhomes and apartments up closer to 1100, just kind of ties in Wallen Way, and then more of an access, easy access out to 1100.
Thanks. You like to address any other concerns?
Absolutely, would love to. You want me facing you or them?
Whatever's coming from it.
Okay. I really want to clear up just a couple of things that I think are very important to understand. First of all, these are all single family homes. Even the townhomes are considered single family homes. The density, the number of units on this property is 40 units. We're maintaining over 3 acres of open space. This would be considered, I'm a realtor. My name is Blake Combs, by the way, I'm a broker with Exit Realty. And any kind of a development like this would be considered not high density for sure, but it would be considered medium density. The other thing that I want to clear up that came up in the comments, and I appreciate all of the comments that were made, and I've made notes of all of them. And I'm happy to stay afterwards and answer any other additional concerns. But the other thing that I want everybody to understand is there are no apartments here. And in fact, I brought with me tonight a couple of books that have potential floor plans and renderings. And our intention is to do a very nice development here. These are not going to be entry-level homes. These are homes that are either step-up homes or the patio homes, which are the smaller homes. And let me kind of point those out to you. So we do have townhomes here. We have townhomes here, and we have one block of townhomes here. All of those townhomes are very nice townhomes. They're bigger townhomes. They're aimed at a different market. They're not aimed at a first-time home buyer market. These are established, these will attract established residents. Our whole concept here is to do what's called a Soho community. And there's so many people working from home right now. There's a real demand for small home offices. And so consider, these would be professionals like attorneys, it would be insurance agents, maybe a realtor, just small business owners. And our plan is in the clubhouse, which is right up here, we're also putting a private office. And that private office would act as a place where the professionals who live in this community could meet with clients. It won't increase a lot of traffic in the community because again, it's small offices and home offices. This isn't, the CC&Rs will be written in such a way that the traffic will be limited on people coming into the community. And again, they'll be sold to, professionals who are working from home. So those are the first things that I wanted to comment on.
Again, there's no rentals. These are all gonna be sold, so these will all be property owners. I'd like to address just a couple of concerns on the water. The creek is going to be enclosed. Right now, the creek comes in south on the property and then it heads west. Our intention is to completely close that creek and run a pipeline across the front of the property. It'll all be engineered, and then it will tie back into the creek down here. So that's our intention with the creek. We want to mitigate the floodplain. Right now, there is a very narrow floodplain that goes across the front of the property. We have held all of the property, as you can see, we've tried to hold back all the residents away from 1100 North. And the reason we have done that is because we know that there is a little bit of a floodplain. We've already talked to the city about mitigating that, and they said that if we enclose that in a pipeline, it will very likely mitigate the entire floodplain across that property. There is presently an irrigation canal that goes across. It goes right across here from the stub of the road right here, the circle, the roundabout here, and it heads that way across property. In fact, it ties in right here. I've had discussions with our engineers, and that will also be covered and enclosed so that it's not a problem, for any of the downstream users of that water. And I guess, let me address the extension of Wallen Way as well. When we first came to the city and met with them in a project management meeting, we brought a conceptual drawing that did not show Wallen Way tying in. The city said that if we were going to put in this development, we would have to connect to Wallen Way because we would need a second point of egress. So that was why the drawing was re-engineered, is to connect to that Wallen Way extension. That was a requirement of the city. I know there's some current concerns about the impending property that comes in here, that the Tropes own, and I've talked to the Tropes about that. We're definitely interested in addressing that, and I've already talked to the engineers today. Matthew, you asked me when I talked to you this morning if there was any way that we could make a 90-degree turn there. Based on the current city requirements for radius on 90-degree corners, it's probably very unlikely that we can just turn that road at a 90-degree angle without causing a traffic problem and potential accident problem. My engineers have some other ideas that I'd love to discuss with you. And we can show you how that we can reorient that road and try to minimize the impact as much as we can. The bottom line on the extension of Wallen Way is if the city would give us an approval to not extend that, there's maybe another way that we can address it. But the whole reason that the Wallen Way extension was planned on this conceptual drawing was to take into account the city's requirement to extend Wallen Way. The other thing I just want to make a general comment about is I've been in real estate for many years now, and one of the things that I really like about the developers that I'm working with, who are here tonight, Lane and Jim. The reason that I really like working with these guys is we love to take public comments. And we love to try to incorporate and try to make everybody happy. I really believe in most negotiations, there's a win-win for everybody. And so the conceptual drawing that you're seeing tonight, this is not the drawing that's going to be submitted for a subdivision application. We know that property is going to be developed. I would like to make it a real center point for the city, a really appealing project that has nice elevations, nice design elements. We're also including many public amenities for both the community and for this specific community, but also for Harrisville. One of the things that the city asked us to do is they said, we would love to see some pickleball courts in the city. So we put pickleball courts right up here. We put them at the front of the property on 1100 North, where most traffic is going to come in. And people can now come in, and we put a parking lot right here so that people can park there and play pickleball. That was one of the things that the city asked that we do. We also put a little barbecue area here. We have walking trails going throughout the community to kind of keep it a lot of, as much open space as we can. And so those are some of the design aspects that we felt like would kind of, you know, provide some amenities for not only the residents of this community, but the residents in Harrisville as well. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you?
Yes, I have some.
Yes, absolutely.
You say you've been in real estate for quite a few years. I guess that doesn't make you all bad. All right, what I want.
Thank you for the compliment.
What is this mixed use term? These are all gonna be such high-end homes, blah, blah, blah. What is the mixed use property you're talking about? Mixed, what's the mixed part?
Well, the mix is we have townhomes, again, single family homes, not rentals. None of them will be rented. So we have townhomes and we also have single family homes. All of these are patio homes. So these are single level patio homes.
What about any thoughts of bringing businesses in there? Because this is a residential community and that's what we've all been commenting on.
The only businesses that would be allowed in here would be home-based businesses. There's,
Like what?
as I said earlier, a lawyer, a chiropractor, maybe. Yeah. architect.
Okay. Address Walden way over there. What about 1100? That street is going to be nothing but, you know, traffic one way from Washington. And already is getting more traffic than I can. Like, people are gonna be coming in, going in there by Walden, and that's probably how you're gonna get in there. That's really gonna push the traffic on 1100. I don't see that you really address that.
Okay.
You're saying, oh, you
Okay,
know,
Mr. McCall?
well,
Yes.
We can't let's get into a big, huge question answer thing. There's gonna be
Okay.
time for that down the road. Again, we just wanted you to generally speak and answer some of the questions that came up during public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah.
I have, what you want me to look at? I thought you were giving it to me. Let me just quickly review my notes. There's something that we have addressed with our public works director, Justin's comments, and then the developer's comments. Just to revisit a quick clarification about the city standards with irrigation. Our standards are always to provide the irrigation water through the development at the same time and the same quantity that the downstream users are using with irrigation. To Justin's point earlier, I just want to clarify that any downstream users from the irrigation will continue to be provided that same service of water. It's probably an important opportunity to clarify the connectivity with Wallen Way and the stub road there. The history with that home in particular, when the Wallens developed, they owned both parcels were one parcel. The county does not require the same property owner to get permission from the city to deed a portion of their property to themselves in a different tax ID number, which is technically subdividing property. If it's the same property owner and they're deeding property to themselves, they don't require the city's approval for that. What that does oftentimes is create circumstances where there's a non-compliant lot created within the city that the city is unaware of, which is the circumstance that happened here. When the Wallens applied for a building permit, it was discovered that they had subdivided off a portion of their property that no longer met the A1 zoning requirements at the time. And the city went through a rezone application with them at the time, and that's when the property was changed to the RE15 zoning from A1 zoning. So this lot has a bit of a non-conforming history where that home is. I think it's important to recognize that because the city was not part of the process from the beginning. And the private right-of-way connection to Wallen Way was required as a temporary turnaround with a future connection
for them to build a home there. Now, the city is not involved in the private properties sale and purchase process. I understand there is another boundary line adjustment that took place because when they built the shop that's on that property, there was whether somehow at the time it was too close to the property line, and that has subsequently been adjusted as well. So I think it's helpful to understand the history there, why it looks the way that it does, and the challenges that the city and the developer are faced with. It's also important to understand the city's role in development. We do not drive development. Private property owners have a right to develop the property to their concept within the guidelines that the city has with our laws and ordinances. I'd like to encourage those that are frustrated with development to be very involved with the state legislators, particularly even this year, as we have gone through a 90-day non-compliance process from November until recently in February, where the city was non-compliant with our moderate income housing and risked losing $500,000 worth of funding, so that we worked very hard to meet the requirements of HB 462 last year to come into compliance, because the state legislators often put requirements on cities without consideration to the impact that it has on our communities or our ability to control whether that development comes in place. And just a reference from that, with Harrisville's 2018 moderate income housing plan, 80% of our housing at that time was considered moderate income housing. When we reassessed that for our 2022 moderate income housing report, we had one home in Harrisville that qualified under the gauge of moderate income housing. We don't control the price of homes. We don't control whether a private property owner decides to develop the property. Our role in development is to make sure that they stay within the guidelines that the city has. This developer has applied for a mixed-use residential zone. The city back in 2018 adopted a mixed-use ordinance. We've modified that, made some amendments to it. We have 3 subzones for the mixed-use development. The first one is large project, which is the Ben Lomond development. There won't be any others in the city because it requires 100 acres for a large project mixed use. The second one is our commercial mixed use. Those are all on our corridors, our Highway 89, Wall Avenue, Washington Boulevard corridors. If a mixed use development proposal comes in for that, then 51% requirement commercial development is required for that. This is a residential mixed use development. They are under different regulations under our zone. And they are the success of the mixed use development for the public to understand is the negotiation process that takes place between a council member, a planning commissioner, and city staff is to reach an agreement where there is a public benefit to the mixed use development. All of our other mixed use developments have included large potential increased amenities for the city's purposes, not just for the development alone. So that's something that the city will consider during the negotiation process. This is the first step and is part of the public process for us to receive public comments. And we appreciate the opportunity to hear from those concerned in our community so that we can mitigate those and work through those during that negotiation process.
Thank you for that. You're in.
So this public comments isn't related to public hearing, it's just other public comments.
Oh, okay, so we can't open second. So we can't open public comments with pretty much
3 minutes for whatever they want.
3 minutes for whatever. There we go. Keep it a 3-minute max. If there's anything else anybody wants to get up and say.
Okay. And I mean, it would have been nice to hear a lot of this maybe at the beginning, for one. But you're saying that the state is making everybody provide moderate to low in certain areas. But we've been told this is all gonna be high class stuff. You know, how does that, I guess, how does that meet the need for what we were just told? And again, we hear, yeah, we're gonna help with the traffic, but everything he's telling us, 1100 is just gonna get busier than shit. You know, excuse me, but I mean, it is. I mean, pretty soon we're gonna have stoplights on that street. You know, this is, you know, it's frustrating. It really is.
So I would just like to address the history of the interconnection of the end of Wallen Way and our property and the subject property. Regardless of the circumstances of how it was subdivided and what the agreement was or necessity for interconnection for future development, this is addressed towards all of you, all of the development team and everybody here. Would you want a road coming through your front yard? I think that's a very reasonable question to ask and to strongly consider for approving this plan. Clay mentioned a couple other options in terms of turning radii, not meeting the city standards. There's countless examples of knuckle streets through this community where the streets are actually longer, have more houses and create more traffic than what we have going on here. So I'm strongly still not gonna entertain a straight interconnection. I suggest you work with the city on getting approval for a knuckle type configuration. If you lose lot 25 or part of lot 24.
Happy to do that.
I think that's
Yeah, our engineers are here on the back of the, on the phone with them much over the last couple of weeks. But with this in particular, we are now thinking about coming in this way and around here, even if we need to lose a lot or two.
So
come outside.
the dedicated roadway coming off 1100 has a narrower width, the extension of Wallen Way. Well, why couldn't Wallen be neck down?
And again, this is just a public comment.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Matthew,
Sure. That's all I have to say. Consider if you want a road through your front yard.
I agree, it would have been nice to know a little bit more about this before you had this up for public comment, but I do have some concerns. One, I was a real estate agent. I know that you cannot say who is and is not gonna buy these houses. You can't say it's just attorneys or just doctors. You are not allowed to, I cannot think of the word, but you cannot just tell somebody they can't buy it because they don't meet whatever guidelines they want to put in there. That's number one. Two, the creek. I have the canal that runs to my house. And I've had it there. By the way, I've lived in Harrisville since 2001. Ducks and wildlife frequent that creek. When you close it off to a lot of ducks that go through there. And I have little ducklings during the spring. So you have wildlife in that canal or in that creek. So now you're limiting that as well. They're cutting off where they have been able to go. And the third, 1100 North, again, I'm gonna address that because I have one of the friendly Harrisville officers that's constantly parked, probably in front of their house if they moved in, so they know what I'm talking about. First, they're gonna connect with 89. I'm not sure about how Wayland is gonna connect onto Larson, because that's a whole another issue in itself. But 89, you're gonna pick up traffic. So what's gonna happen to control traffic going out on 89? Are we gonna need to put another light there? Also, Washington Boulevard, because 1100 North connects up in Washington. And that has been, certain times of the day, I will not go left, ever make a left turn on, off at 1100 on Washington. I'll go right to make a U-turn and go back the other way. Because that traffic there, I know once upon a time they talked about a light, but they said it was too close between where Larson Lane connects in where 1100 North comes out. So how is all that traffic gonna be addressed? Because obviously, this is gonna increase a lot of housing. Now, I'm not opposed to the single or the patio homes. Okay, I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm concerned for traffic. Pickleball court, great. Traffic. That's what needs to be looked, 1100 North, you have kids walking along there. There's constantly, I'm seeing kids on those sidewalks or playing at the playground across the street. So you have to address traffic. You cannot limit who buys the house and say, well, you don't meet the guidelines, whatever, you can't buy it. And that canal, we're wildlife. There's a lot of wildlife there.
Absolutely.
I just have a question. My name is Kirsten. I'm a Skylar. We live on 1100 North on the west side of the property there. So you said that these are all considered single family homes. The definition of a single family residence is an individual home. So how does that qualify?
Only one family lives in
But it's not an
single
individual.
family home.
The qualifier is if it was detached, single family.
It's a freestanding residential building.
I'm telling you, from a real estate standpoint, townhomes are considered single family homes.
My husband is also a real estate agent. He doesn't agree with that.
Right,
Okay, well,
and that's semantics.
Public comment, not in Vegas.
They're not apartments. That's key.
So we've got houses across from us off of, I'm new here, so don't quote me on the streets, but we've got a lot of vacant houses sitting open, vacant, all around us. And we're gonna put townhouses and these studio, what did you call it? Patio homes, right, to go to the medium family income. We paid over 600 for our detached home on Wayland, and I think that it's not about the style, it's about one, how do we, if we have 40 of them, every single property has 2 cars. That's 80 cars at minimum off of each street. We have 1 stop sign on Wayland. We have traffic everywhere coming in and out, say coming out of Wayland, turning left or right, right? You've got at rush hour, you've got a backup turning left to go whatever street that is. We're gonna have to need sustainability for increasing our overall traffic production, right? If the city is willing to put resources in to keep us all safe, then it's a possibility, right? Because we do need to grow. But in this style of this many people in this small area, I'm a little bit hesitant. So I guess from my standpoint, I didn't receive a letter in the mail. I got a note on my doorstep by a good friendly neighbor that's probably in here somewhere. We would like better communication so that we can advocate for ourselves, so that we can come and participate in these meetings like you mentioned. Thank you.
I have one more quick comment I think has been considered, and that is the traffic on both Wayland and 1100 North. I think that is one of the biggest concerns here. I think if you cannot find another way to get in and out of this place, then you're putting a great deal of burden on 1100 and apparently on the other street, Wayland too. So there ought to be something that these gentlemen ought to be able to come up with. That, you know, they're not so concerned with us people that are already there. They're concerned with what they're going to be doing. And I think that's really important, that the residents now shouldn't have to take the brunt of this being, you know, killed off with too much traffic going up and down and no privacy, no quietness on their street now because somebody has to come down and get over to there. I just think it's really unfair, and I think you need to really look at that area. Thank you.
Something I did not hear addressed is why there isn't another egress other than Wallen Way. You know, it looks like there's a hub that, you know, that right here, you know, why can't a road be built so that the second egress out of that neighborhood is not on Wallen Way, which is a very private residential suite? So I'd like to have an answer to that.
Have anyone else? No, nobody else in at all? Then we're going to close public comment at this time. We'll move on to agenda number 5 as our commission staff follow.
I got one item of follow-up, just for everyone who didn't get a notice. You can get these agendas emailed to you if you go to the public meeting notice website, which is pmn.utah.gov, and you can sign up and they'll send you an email with the piece of paper that says what we're talking about. Every time we have a meeting, do the same thing to city council. Just as a reminder that if you want to be super involved and know
Can you get
everything,
closer to the mic, please?
so you want to be super involved and know everything, you can get an email with this every time. We also post it on the door, the buildings that stop by every week.
What was that address again?
pmn.utah.gov.
It's also on our website.
Yeah, it's also on the website and in the fine print on the door at the bottom of the agenda. Anyway, just wanted to let everyone know you can follow us there. Get notice of everything we're talking about and you update when the minutes are updated and everything like that, so keep track of it. I just wanted to follow up with that. So, do you have other follow-up?
We have our ethical behavior pledges tonight for you to sign, our annual ethical behavior pledges.
I think it was less than a year ago.
I'll just go ahead and staff follow-up comments. So I mentioned earlier that we did receive a certificate of compliance for our moderate income housing reports. Yes. So we are compliant now with our moderate income housing report. So we did adopt, the city council did adopt all 6 strategies that we had discussed in our January meeting as the strategies that we will work towards. And again, recognizing that all of those strategies may or may not come to fruition in the city. We have to identify the barriers that stood in our way of accomplishing those
I'm
strategies.
sorry, Jenny, 1 second. We cannot have crosstalk while we're trying to conduct city business. So either leave it till the end of the meeting or outside things.
So the strategies that we did adopt, again, if we will identify barriers that we run into as we try to work through those strategies, and the new requirements for 462 are that we annually report what steps that we have taken. I believe that it was at our last meeting that we were able to inform you of the good news that the Ben Lomond project did receive their UDOT access permit for Highway 89, and their signal design was approved for their project. And we have now received multiple applications that will be coming towards through the approval process as quickly as staff can get them reviewed, and then also their application fees paid. So we'll start to see that progress take place on Ben Lomond View. And it seems we have, I suppose that's mostly all to catch you up. The city council is diligently working on the budget right now for the fiscal 2024 budget. And we have also staff has been working very diligently to apply for grant funding to help with future development, including our public works facility and municipal complex and things like that. So we're looking at creative ways to help balance the city's budget. So I thought I'd just bring that information to you.
Good.
And if you have any questions or concerns for staff, we're happy to address them for you tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good. That's great news.
Yeah, and I think you can declare us adjourned unless we need a motion for adjournment now too.
I will officially adjourn this meeting, Harrisville City Planning Commission at 8:16.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
If any of you have questions that didn't get addressed, we happy to answer.